Well, welcome back, Anagenesis. I want to talk with you a little bit today about the basics of wise life management, if I can put it that way. And start with the basic issue that every human being has to face. One of the most fundamental issues in human life is where to find teachers and paths. Teachers and paths. And the reason for that is this. Human life is simply too short, and the knowledge base that we need to live well in this world is too vast for any individual or any community or any generation to figure it out all on their own. We come into this world rather information poor, if I can put it that way, and all you have to do is kind of compare how strange we are as creatures from many of those out there. Think of a lizard who requires no apprenticeship. It scratches its way out of an egg and immediately hunts and lives on its own, never even needs to see its mother or its father. And of course, that's an extreme, but as you go through the animal kingdoms and you kind of look at the different creatures out there, we take far longer to receive an adequate apprenticeship for life than any of the other animals out there. Human life is just that complex. And so we need teachers. We need those who can show us how to live because we simply cannot figure it all out on our own. And so we need teachers because we need far more information than we arrive with in order to live well. And we need paths. In other words, we need long-term, coherent life trajectories in order to live well, because we simply, as these limited creatures that we are, we cannot be and do everything. We have very distinct limits that we have to live within. And so it's just a feature of human life, a fact that if you're going to make a worthwhile contribution to this world, if you see something that you are particularly called to do, start now, because that path is going to take longer than you think. And so start now. So the kind of feature of human life that makes teachers and paths necessary is the limited nature of our existence. Life is too short, we're way too limited, and so we need help to get on that path that is blessedness, that is the life marked by the joy of progress. And so how do we go about this? Well, that's what chapter 4 of Proverbs is all about. It's how to wisely manage our life given the shortness and the inherent limitation of human existence. And so the first 4 verses, chapter 4, verses 1 through 4, evokes this quickly evaporating nature of human life, and with it the need for wise intergenerational teaching. He says this: "Hear, O sons, the instruction of a father. Give attention that you may gain understanding. For I give you sound teaching. Do not abandon my instruction. When I was a son to my father, tender and the only son in the sight of my mother, then he taught me, and he said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments, and live." Now, what he does here is he evokes this quickly passing nature of human life by pointing out that as he prepares to teach his son, in whose position you and I get to sit, that he notices or reminds us that at one point he was young too. He was tender, he was malleable, his whole future lay out in front of him. He hadn't yet become anything really distinct. But his father taught him and gave him the kind of instruction that he needed to pursue a life of wisdom, to become somebody who makes a a significant contribution to the world. And now, having grown old himself, he is passing on what he heard from his father to his son. So we're given this kind of overarching context where we can now say, okay, life, it passes quickly, and we have to become something. So in view of that, what are the basics of wise life management? How do I go about acquiring the skills I need to live well in this world? Well, verses 5 through 9 are the first point being passed on in this intergenerational teaching. And basically what he says here is approach life as a series of purchases or exchanges. And as you go about making those exchanges, knowing you have a very limited budget, always aim first to purchase that which is of most value. So verse 5 through 9. Here's what he says. Purchase wisdom, purchase understanding, and do not forget, do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, wisdom, and she will guard you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning, or you could translate it, the most important thing is wisdom. Purchase wisdom. And while you're purchasing, buy some understanding. Prize her, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a garland of grace. She will present you with a crown of beauty. It's worth thinking about this metaphor of purchasing or buying or acquiring because it tells us something really crucial about the nature of human life. So what happens when I make a purchase? When I make a purchase, I give up one resource or possession in order to acquire something that I consider more needful or useful for my life. Now, what you spend your resources on reveals what it is that you trust, what it is that you think is essential, what you think genuinely worthwhile in your life. And it does that much more clearly than what you claim or what you say. If you just kind of look at where your resources go, you'll see a pretty clear record of what you have thought it worth exchanging your life for. Now, life is a series of exchanges, is what we're asked to think of here. And that's true because what's happening is that day by day, I have to make choices because I can't be everything. I only have so much time, so much energy, so much mental capacity. And because of that, I'm always having to choose what I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to give attention to, what I'm going to work towards, what I'm going to employ my energy to accomplish. And everything that I choose to pursue or acquire, implicitly, at the very least, I'm choosing to pursue that instead of all sorts of other things because I'm limited. And so the wise guidance that we're given by a wise father at this point in life is to see to it that we invest first in acquiring wisdom, acquiring the moral skills and the insight or the understanding that's needed for living well in this world before God. And the reason is that if we sacrifice our time, our energy, our resources for the sake of acquiring that moral and spiritual skill, the result will be that as we acquire this in this life of co-working with God, those moral spiritual skills will actually, as a byproduct, bring about the other things that we need in order to live well. We'll find that the basic supplies for living are taken care of if we focus on developing wisdom and living in keeping with that for the good of making this contribution to the world for which we were made and for which we were called. And so the first piece of advice is, since you're limited, approach each choice as a purchase made on a very limited budget, okay? And measure it that way. The second piece of advice here is in chapter 4, verses 10 through 19. And basically what we're told here is, consider your day-to-day decisions, each of the little ones that you make moment by moment. Think of those in terms of life destinations and life directions. Because the micro decisions that we make day by day turn out long term to be path setting. Here's what he says, verse 10 and following. Hear, my son, and accept my sayings, and the years of your life will be many. I've directed you in the way of wisdom. I've led you in upright paths. When you walk, your steps will not be impeded, and if you run, you will not stumble. Take hold of instruction and do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. And now, I want you to notice, he begins here to describe two different ways. Okay? Do not enter the path of the wicked. Do not proceed in the way of evil persons. Avoid it. Do not pass by it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they do evil, and they're robbed of sleep unless they make someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness, and they drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. The way of the wicked, however, is like darkness. They do not know over what they may stumble. Okay. So the father's advice to his son, to us, is, as you go about weighing those purchases, you can now think of what it is that you're going to trade your minutes, your hours, your days, your weeks, your months, your years for. As you do that, begin to think of this in terms of a path. And that means, as you approach each decision in life, what you want to do is place it in a context of a very long view. And his advice is that we aim far enough out in terms of time, and we aim deep enough down in terms of the various layers of life skills that are needed. And if we do that, if we make our aim far enough out in time, deep enough down in terms of life skills, what happens is that we will be able to perceive the meaning, the appropriate meaning of each of those smaller decisions. It'll put them in a context, this long view context, for a life being built that will endow each of those with meaning and will supply us with the capacity then to make wise choices. It's simply a fact of human existence that paths are constantly diverging. We live in a world where every path we take has numerous forks along the way in which we either we will proceed in one direction or another. And it's also a fact of human existence that small variations in daily practice, in other words, in the direction you go on that path, small variations in daily practice will yield drastically different outcomes when viewed in terms of a whole life. And so That's why, if you notice in verse 14, the emphasis that the Father places here is upon the beginning of the path, upon the first steps. He says, don't enter the path of the wicked. Right? Don't enter it. Why focus on that first step? I think the reason he focuses on the first step is because it is possible in human life to simply drift thoughtlessly, slowly into disaster. It's actually possible through mere drift to end up engaged in deeds, or beyond that, a whole life, an existence of genuine wickedness. In fact, it may be that it's only possible to end up with a life of genuine wickedness through drift. And here's what I mean by that. You see, it's through this kind of lazy, thoughtless, clumsy living that we gradually become numb to what we're doing. And over time, that drift takes us down a path to where, given properly pressurized conditions, we're prepared, really without thinking, to do something that's genuinely vile, that's wicked. But that may be possible only through that drift, only as the end of a path. And here's why. If I immediately see and try something that I can perceive to be vile or wicked, it will shock me. And it alerts my conscience, it destabilizes me inside. And that very well may be enough of a wake-up call to lead to my repentance, to my turning and changing my mind, my behavior, realizing I need to go in a different way. So it's that drift of thinking I'm not making any real decision that over time, cumulatively, leads a person to the place where they can do genuinely wicked, vile, reprehensible things, often without even thinking about it. And so what this means is that I need to ask, with each of those micro decisions, each of those forks in the road of my life, given that my life is inherently limited and whatever contribution I'm going to make, for good, for ill, is going to happen in the space of a handful of decades, will this decision, will this action move me in the direction I need to go? Will it take me towards a life that could end up in vileness, or will it bring me towards a life of winsomeness and of moral skill and of dexterity as I negotiate the difficult situations of life? Which path am I going to take? Now, the reason we need to think of this with each of those life decisions is because of a basic truth about human life. And I think of this simply as, I like to call it the law of progress, but it's evoked here in verses 18 and 19. It says, "But the light of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day." You see, there's this increasing dispersal of light over one's path when one goes down this way. But the same is true moving in the other direction. There's increasing darkness for the way of the wicked. The way of the wicked is like darkness. They don't know over what they may stumble. They become increasingly incapable of seeing clearly what their behavior will lead to. How do we make sense of this? At a really basic level, this is a feature of human existence, that adaptation is inevitable for human beings. Whatever it is that I do on a regular basis, I become better at. progress is inevitable. That's true whether what I am adapting myself to is laying around on the couch, eating potato chips, watching disgusting things, or if what I'm doing is sacrificing the pleasure of the moment for the sake of contributing something that's worthwhile for others, for this world, acquiring moral skill, etc. Right? Whichever path I go, as I walk down that path, I will get better and better at it. Now, what that means is that whatever I do, any action I take, enables me to repeat that action more easily the next time. And that's true all the way down at a biochemical level, actually. Whatever I do becomes easier for me to repeat. And as a consequence, we have this inevitable progress in one direction or another in life. Now, negatively, what that means is this. It means I should never practice what I do not want to become. Never practice what you don't want to become. Because as one kind of takes this drift through thoughtless, clumsy living that leads towards evil, it has a blinding effect. What it does is it makes it easier for me to do whatever the wrong thing is, again, with less compunction, with less disturbance to my mind, to my heart. And as a consequence, I become less capable of even seeing the wrong that I'm doing as I walk down that path. And so, do not practice what you don't want to become. The flip side, positively, it means this. It means that if you leverage the micro decisions of your life towards truthful, upright living, towards acquiring moral skill, and you make that your priority, whatever else you're doing, you're focused on becoming the sort of person who will contribute in ways that increase the well-being and make for more value in the world around you. If that's what you are doing, if you leverage every micro decision in that direction, what happens is your powers of perception will grow. You'll see more opportunity open up. You'll see more clearly the thing that you could do that would be of the most benefit in the lives of those that you're interacting with. And so the experience will be of light increasing, ever greater clarity, ever greater understanding. You grow as you walk down this path. You become more capable of producing good for yourself and for others. It's the law of progress, and it works in human life. Okay, well, last bit of advice given here is, in light of the fact that that our life is a series of purchases where we're buying one thing instead of another, and we have to choose a path because we're too limited. We can't walk down every path, and so we want to choose the right path. We want to choose a path of moral skill and of significant contribution to this world. The question then becomes, and this is the last section, verse 20 and following, how do I make progress down that path? What concretely do I do? And this is such a beautiful passage. It's really worth memorizing and meditating on as you go throughout life. Beginning in verse 20, and I'll just take this kind of a few verses at a time, and then we'll think about it, about each of them. So verses 20 through 23. My son, give attention to my words. Incline your heart to my sayings. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your sight. Keep them in the middle of your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and health to all their whole body. Watch over your heart with all diligence, because from it flow the springs of life. So the way that we walk down this path is, first, we see to it that we're employing our ears and our eyes, in other words, our faculties for perception. We employ that to maintain attention on this moral teaching and to protect our heart's focus. You see, the focus that we have, our attention, and where we will place it, that is really the most basic choice that any of us have in life, is where we will allow or require our attention to rest. And we do that through what we look at with our eyes, what we focus on, and what we listen to. And so the first kind of concrete thing we do is we attend to what we're looking at and what we're listening to see to it that it's wholesome and that it's moving us in the direction of that life of moral skill and competence that we're looking for. Because our awareness, what we focus on, that ultimately is what determines the substance of our life. My experience, the substance of my life, of my existence, is going to be determined by what I give my attention to, and conversely, what I exclude from that attention. So, if I'm going to use my heart, my awareness, my attention as a way of guiding myself down the path I need to take in this life, what's the next thing that I have to keep in mind? Well, that's verse 24. And he basically says, renounce all deception, all double speak. Here's his words. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, put devious lips far from you. This is so essential. It's essential because your heart, your awareness, your attention is your most basic equipment for human life. It will guide you where you will go. It will determine who you become and how you experience this world. And because of that, it's so important that we not pollute that faculty. That we never weaken or pollute it through deceit. And look, this is a path of increasing light, increasing clarity. On the front end, I may not know the truth about a number of things, and so I'll be wrong about some things. This isn't about being wrong. This is about deceit. This is about lying. I know when I am uttering a falsehood. And here's the thing. We learn to lie, and we engage in that thinking that we can misdirect others without misdirecting ourselves. But that's never possible, actually. When I go about trying to distort another person's perception, the inevitable result is I distort my own capacity to see clearly and choose rightly. And so that calibrating function and path-finding function of setting my awareness on what is good and right to pursue it, that gets derailed if I indulge in falsehood. And so banish deceit and doublespeak from your life. Third concrete thing to do, verse 25, basically is refuse to court any distractions from that call that you see in life. Let your eyes look directly ahead of you. Let your eyelids, your gaze, be fixed straight in front of you. If you're going to go anywhere worth going in life, it's going to require persistence over a long period of time. When you see the good that that you are to grow to contribute in this world, start eliminating distractions along the way. Keep your focus in that direction. It's going to take longer than you think. It's going to be more difficult than you imagine on the front end. It's going to be more rewarding also. But anything worth doing, there's more involved than we imagine on the front end. So start now and eliminate distractions. Keep your focus. And then finally, verses 26 and 27, one of the primary ways that we maintain our focus, especially moral focus, is by controlling our body's location. It's that simple. Don't put yourself in proximity to something that you're going to have a very difficult time being around without destroying your moral focus and possibly your life. And so these are the words: watch the path of your feet, and all the rest of your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Turn your foot from evil. Very simple life truth here. Okay? If you're going to make a worthwhile contribution in this world, you have to put your body in a position to make it happen. What that means is, if you have writing you're supposed to get done, you've got to put your bottom in a chair in front of the place where you do your writing, in front of your computer. If you're going to build something that is of worthwhile for others to dwell in, you have to actually take yourself to the work site, get your tools, get to work. Whatever it is that you are engaged as your call in life, use your body to get yourself in the position to do that. And then don't turn from that. The only thing you turn from is you turn from evil. Move your body out of the way when you find yourself walking into a situation where it becomes increasingly difficult to act with honesty and with proper attention to what is good. Proximity matters. Don't court temptation. Walk away from it and stay focused on the good that you're called to in this life. Life in this world, it goes fast. So start now. Your life is a series of choices, this way or that. Purchase this, not something else. A path is necessary. A path is necessary in order to live well. And so once you find that path, set your attention, banish deceit, and then steadily focus on the work before you, putting your body in a position to do it. And if you do that, you will find light increasing as the Lord leads you down the path towards wisdom and towards a good contribution in this world. Grace and peace.